The topic we are going to cover today is something that we've done in the past. So you're not going to hurt my feelings if this is a repeat, but I think it is absolutely necessary in the market that we're in. I have helped no less than 4 or 5 agents, broker on call this week, and have helped multiple agents with questions about how do I make my offer more attractive. I actually helped one agent that actually had their client asking about basically how do I terminate my buyer's brokerage agreement because you've written 5 offers and we can't get one accepted, and thinks it's the agent's fault. Not necessarily the case. It is the market that we are in, and we've got to be smart about it. All right. So a lot of this has to do with setting expectations that this is the strongest seller's market that we have seen in decades. So it is important that they know how difficult it is likely to be. Okay, so we are going to talk today about winning the bidding war when you're out there writing offers on properties. All right. I'm going to roll straight into this. Hang on, let me select which screen I'm doing. Well, what's the best way to do this? I'm going to do this screen, share. Okay, you guys looking at a presentation right now? You guys looking at winning the bidding war?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure. All right. Ways to make your offer more attractive to a seller. Okay, first off, all of these things that we're going to talk about, you're going to want to do with the full knowledge and understanding of your buyers. Okay, and there's ways, and we're going to talk about this in just a minute, to make sure that they're not accepting any undue risks. Okay, but the very first thing that I'm going to tell you when you're writing an offer for a buyer is never, ever submit an offer without talking to the listing agent. That's assuming you have a real live human being agent on the other end of the as the co-op on this. It's somewhat more difficult when you're talking about Zillow or OfferPad or one of the iBuyers. You may not have the luxury of this, so you got to kind of operate in a vacuum. But I would never ever, if I've got, Jane Doe from Keller Williams that is the listing agent on the other end of this transaction, I'm going to talk to Jane and I'm going to ask her the question, other than the obvious, i.e. net to seller, is there anything that the sellers are looking for that would help me to write a winning offer for you? That is the best script. Okay, and I use it all the time. I didn't invent it. I didn't say it. I just plagiarized it off somebody else, and I hope you guys will do exactly the same. And quite often, you will be shocked. They will give you the keys to the kingdom, y'all. Some of them will tell you exactly what you need and exactly where you would have to beat. Others are going to hold their cards very close to their chest, and that's understandable too. All right. So the very first thing is bid the highest net to seller. I mean, it sounds so obvious. And include no or low seller paid closing costs. The expectation and the conversation that you're having with your client is, yes, you can ask the seller to pay some of your closing costs. Doing so is a double-edged sword because it is, on the one hand, going to help you. It's going to help you with your cash position, but it's going to make your offer less attractive to the seller. All right. So, gosh, you know what? I put that in there twice. I made some edits to this thing earlier today, and I didn't realize I even had all these transitions in it on the PowerPoint. So forgive me, y'all. Offer higher earnest money. 1% is the absolute bare minimum that I would offer earnest money. In this seller's market that we're in, you probably need to think about 2 to 3%. Short or 0 days of due diligence period. Okay. 0 days of due diligence period is very, very risky, and it is possible to do. It is not always advisable to do. One alternative is to consider the property sold with the right to request repairs, and we're going to talk about that in more detail a little bit further into the presentation. Okay. So 3 days it is possible to do an inspection, and 5 days, 7 days, whatever the case may be. The shorter the due diligence period, the better off you're going to be. If you do any of these things, I would strongly suggest using the disclosures to buyers purchasing in a seller's market. There is both an exhibit, and there's also a way that you can just copy those special steps into a buyer's brokerage agreement so that you are covered by this. Does everybody know what this looks like? Has everybody seen this thing before? Stand by. Forms library, sellers, you've got a standalone acknowledgement and an exhibit. Let me show you this. This is what that document looks like. So what this says is basically this is a seller's market. Buyer acknowledges that making an aggressive offer to purchase property involves taking greater risks. These includes without limitation the following. Talks about as is, talks about as large earnest money deposits, and without any financing and appraisal contingencies, you have a greater chance of losing your earnest money. All of these things, this is more of a CYA document. Everybody knows what CYA stands for, cover your behind. So this is a cautionary tale, and this is a great conversation to have early in the game to set expectations with your client. Did everybody know that this was out there and it existed? I hope so. All right. All right. Wow.
Hey, Jay, real quick.
Yeah.
Ideal situation for that document you just showed us.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, someone has the funds, right? Able to, right?
No, not yet.
What do you mean, like?
Well, you're waiving all the contingencies,
Oh, absolutely.
Money.
Yep.
So.
Very much so.
Okay.
Okay. The other additional ways to make your offer more attractive, adjusting the closing date. The go-to assumption in most cases is the shorter the better. I have found in this market that that's not always the case. So instead of just automatically going with a very short closing date, express flexibility on the closing date. Put in a date, but in your email when you send the offer over, you might want to say, we have complete flexibility on the closing date. Sometimes a longer closing date may work better. And I found that to be the case. A lot of people are selling their current home and buying new construction, and they're waiting for the house to be built. And if you can give them the time to stay in their current home while they are waiting for the new one to be finished, then you can quite frequently win that bidding war just simply by having that flexibility. Anybody experienced that one lately? I know I have. All right. So the other thing that we can adjust is the financing and the appraisal contingencies. Again, I would never do this without coordination, very strong coordination with the lender, and again, cautioning and advising the buyer of the risks of doing these things. Okay. So risk management, always manage your risks and make sure you're setting the appropriate expectation. All right, this is really, really important, and a lot of you need to really pay attention to this. The cleaner the offer, the better. So in this very super strong seller's market, either few or no special stipulations. It used to be when I was first entering into this business, if you did not have at least 3 to 5 special stips, saying things like termite, a termite bond or a termite letter, seller will pay for a home warranty, we want the pool to be inspected, all of these things. If you didn't have all of that in your initial offer, you were doing a disservice to your client. Now in the seller's market, you're almost doing a disservice to your client if you're asking for anything. Okay. I hate to say it, it is what it is true. But if you're asking for anything in the purchase and sale agreement, the automatic assumption is then what are they going to ask for? If they want my curtains rods to be left and the washer and dryer to remain with the property, and they're asking for all this stuff in the initial offer, then how long is the amendment to address concerns going to be once they've inspected the house? All right. And when you're dealing with your buyer, here's a great script. There is absolutely a time to ask for things like the termite letter and the washer and dryer. But in this strong seller's market, the purchase and sale agreement is not the right time. We can save these for the due diligence and the amendment to address concerns, and you're going to have a much better chance of winning the bidding war, and then we can cross that bridge when we come to it further into the process. Okay. Isn't that right, Jasmine?
Yes, that's right.
I'm calling Jasmine out because I've been helping her with one today. All right. So other ways to make your offer more attractive deals with what type of financing you are using. All right. So let's just go down through the order of preference. If you're presenting an offer that is cash, cash is always going to be best. If your client doesn't have cash, you can always consider cash option programs such as knock or ribbon, any of the easy buy programs that we've talked about I don't want to say ad nauseum, at length within our other training sessions. All of those are considerations. If you don't know what those are and you need help with those, by all means, let me know and we can continue. The next best option for your client is going to be conventional. All right. After that, FHA. Why is FHA going to be third? I mean, FHA is probably the vast majority. I don't know, but vast majority. It's probably the majority of the loan programs that are being utilized in America in this day and age. Why is it only going to be third in priority? The main answer is the FHA Mandatory Clause. Who knows what that is? Bedroom, is that a raised hand? I said, what is an FHA Mandatory Clause? All right.
I think I might know what it is.
Go for it. Bring it on, Jasmine.
So is that when you amend the FHA clause so you can do a conventional one instead?
Actually, it's a valid consideration, but actually it's not. The FHA Mandatory Clause is a little clause within an FHA exhibit that actually says the language for an FHA type program. If the home does not appraise, then the buyer cannot be penalized by the forfeiture of their earnest money if they cancel the contract. Okay, so that makes it kind of restrictive for the seller. If I'm a seller and I've listed my home for 200 and the appraisal comes back at 180, they have language in there that says that they can cover the $20,000 gap, the FHA Mandatory Clause overrides that, and it says they can cancel the contract and they will never have to surrender their earnest money. That's what the FHA Mandatory Clause is, and that's why it's less attractive than conventional or cash. All right, does that make sense to everybody? And the same thing for VA. VA has a VA mandatory clause, which is basically the exact same language, but they've even got some additional considerations, like for VA, the seller has to do the termite inspection and ensure that the home is termite free. VA is typically a 100% appraisal, so their VA loan programs have it can be zero down payment. They can be 20% down payment if they want to be, but they can also be zero down payment, in which case that makes the appraisal a little bit more difficult. And then with VA, there are even some seller paid fees involved in a VA loan. That's why VA falls below FHA. And then USDA loans, okay, those are in rural areas. And then last in order of preference is any loan with any type of down payment assistance program, such as Georgia Dream or NACA, or gosh, there's multiple other ones. Okay, and the reason why those are going to fall last in terms of priority is going to be because they have you essentially for stuff like Georgia Dream, when you go through the underwriting process for your lender, all of that has to finish, and then you have to send it to Georgia Dream for like two additional weeks of processing, which can delay your closing. So there's just additional bureaucratic requirements involved in both of these programs. All right. So if you are representing a buyer and they are using a VA or an FHA loan, but yet maybe they're VA and they are, super well qualified, but they're wanting to use their VA requirement. First off, I respect that. And as a veteran, I love that. But I might want to consider, instead of doing a VA loan, find out if you, Mr. Seller or Mr. Buyer, can potentially qualify for a conventional loan. It's going to help you to win the bidding war. And then guess what? 6 months later, you can refi into a VA loan and take some cash out if you wanted to at that point. It's always possible. All right. Or if they are FHA, VA, USDA, you might want to consider plugging them into Knock or Ribbon, which can convert their loan for a fee into a cash type offer, so that you have a much better bargaining position when it comes to a multiple offer situation. All right. Any questions on that? I know it's a lot of information, but this is basically kind of the priority list. And if you can move your buyer client up on this list, then the better off they're going to be.
Got a question.
Yes, ma'am. Bring it.
Hey, conventional, is that 20% down?
There are conventional loan programs that are as low as 5%.
Okay.
There actually I've actually heard that there may be actually some conventional that are even less than that. Like, I think there's one conventional it's probably a super high interest rates and lots of points involved, but you might even find a 0% down payment conventional loan.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any questions? Other questions? So when you are presenting your offer, you want to make, pay very close attention to that pre-approval letter, and fill out the appropriate finance contingency exhibit as you go. Okay. And for those programs, the higher the down payment, simply implies that the buyer is more financially secure and potentially could represent less risk to the seller. Okay. Also, here's a plug for why you would want to use somebody like Greg or a local lender as opposed to Quicken or Rocket Mortgage. Well-known, established local lenders are always going to be preferred versus an online lender, Mega Bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. We've all heard the horror stories. That's why I mean, I literally have presented offers before, and the seller, my buyer, was married to some online lender, or thought they were getting a better deal because they've been banking with Wells Fargo for the last 20 years, and they lose it because Wells Fargo doesn't have a great reputation. Okay, plug them in with a well-known local, and they will thank you for it. All right. Here's some additional things. Offer to use the seller's preferred closing attorney. And I say this even if it is not our preferred attorney. Don't get me wrong. I love Luder Larkin. I think they're great. I've used them in the past. But if you are if you're competing against 10 other offers and the buyer has said their preferred closing attorney is Weissman or somebody other than Luder Larkin, I'm not going to fall on my sword over that one. Are we clear? But contractually, whose choice is it which closing attorney it is? It is always the buyer's choice. You're absolutely right. I can only hear you because you're right there. You're muted, buddy. Anyway, you're absolutely right. The contract, the paragraph within the purchase and sales agreement clearly states it is the buyer's choice. So that's why I don't like language on there that says that seller or buyer's offer must use XYZ closing attorney. You can't say that because the contract says otherwise. All right. Here's another one on the expiration date of the offer. Some agents think that if I put an expiration date of the offer 8 hours from right now, that's going to force them into accepting my offer immediately, and not wait around for other offers to come in. Guess what? It don't work. Okay. When they can wait until, if you try to put your expiration date on Friday evening and all they have to do is wait for Monday to get 10 additional offers, you putting that arbitrary date and time on as an expiration date on there is not going to have the desired effect because they're just going to ignore it. And if they do like your offer, now you're creating an administrative burden to have to go in and change the dates on it so that you're not signing an offer that is voidable. All right. Offer some additional seller considerations such as post-closing possession. There's a lot of other things that you can do. All right. Accuracy and attention in detail in the offer presentation are absolutely critical. All right. You must present a complete package, no missing or mislabeled exhibits. I actually had a conversation with Christina at the help desk this morning, and she had indicated that in the last couple of weeks, several contracts have been turned in with nothing but the purchase and sale agreement. That is an incomplete package. And you want to send the entire package, the purchase and sale agreement and all of the exhibits, have them labeled, have them numbered, whatever the case may be. And you always want to include the current pre-approval letter with the offer. If you don't present everything, you're doing your client a disservice, and I'm going to use some really strong language. You might actually deserve to not win the bidding war if you don't present everything complete, organized, well-managed offer package. Okay, I've literally had agents in a multiple offer situation pick my offer and tell me that they picked our offer because they could tell they were working with a professional agent because everything was complete, everything was labeled, the entire thing was all in one, wrapped up in a tight little bow that all they had to do is send it to their client for the initials. Okay, be that agent. On the pre-approval letter, it might actually be advantageous in this seller's market for the letter to show that your buyer is qualified to purchase up to a value, even higher than their current offer price. I am working with a client currently that is approved up to 1.5. and they're searching for a house that's less than 500,000. By golly, I'm going to put that pre-approval letter in there for them every time. Okay. Somebody's on the chat and I don't know what it says. What's in a complete package normally? All of the exhibits and the purchase and sale agreement, all of the exhibits that are applicable to that package, and the pre-approval letter. Okay. All right, next page. Here's some advanced techniques to make your offer more attractive to a seller. The escalation clause, which reads as such. I'll let you guys read that at your leisure, but basically it's a way of ensuring that your buyer doesn't overpay for the house. But this is all entirely dependent upon how much competition is out there. Okay. In most cases, you're almost better to figure out what their cap would be and literally just offer that. But the escalation clause is a possible way to use that. You know, say for example, the home is 200,000, you're going to offer up to 225, and there are multiple offers, but for all you know, the best other offer is not 225, it's 205. Well, if you use an escalation clause, your client would be liable for, 206 instead of 225. Does that make sense? Okay. The biggest concern with use of an escalation clause is the home still must appraise if they're financing. Okay, so you got to make sure that you're confident with your market analysis to know that that the home is the value is going to be there on the appraisal. All right, some additional techniques. If you use the 0 days of due diligence, you can do so with a GAR 22 F273 property sold with right to request repairs. That basically removes the buyer's right to terminate for no particular reason, but only makes that the reason for them to terminate a particular defect in the home. And it's kind of a midway between due diligence period and no due diligence period. Anybody use this one successfully recently? I have. It works. Some additional advanced techniques. You can offer something called option money. It is, for lack of a better term, the closest thing you can get to a legal bribe. And this is what it looks like. Everybody is very familiar with this due diligence period, but the option payment for due diligence period is right beneath it, and it is very rarely ever used. But what it says is, in consideration of the seller granting buyer an option to terminate this agreement, buyer has one, that's the standard statement of non-refundable option money receipt, of which is sufficient. The seller shall the buyer shall pay the seller an additional amount, and you can specify this amount in check or money order within 3 days. And if you check this, shall not be applied towards the purchase price at the closing, and shall not be refundable to the buyer unless the closing fails to occur due to the default of the seller. Basically, this is a way of saying, simply for the pleasure of accepting my offer versus the next one, and giving me a day or two of due diligence, I'm going to cut you a check for $500, $1,000, $5,000, whatever the case may be, for you to do whatever your little heart desires. If you are representing the seller and you have two offers that are, for lack of a better term, equal, and one of them has option money and the other one doesn't, which would you choose? Of course you would. The one that's going to put money in your pocket tomorrow, or within, in this case, 3 days. Any questions on option money? All right. Some additional things. Strongly consider adding some additional special stipulations in there, and they are all categorized under Seller's Market Special Stips. And those are found in Remind Docs Plus under the Century 21 Connect library. That's what they look like. And there are literally dozens of them, a dozen or more. And they include things like if the appraisal comes in below the purchase price, you'll make up the difference, but it automatically has a price adjustment involved. You can remove the 8-day unilateral extension to strengthen your offer, and it basically says that all extensions of the closing date must be mutually agreed upon. Some of these are like no real skin off the nose and very low risk and no real cost to your client. Like this one, seller's market, buyer agrees not to purchase another property. What a lot of agents are doing out there right now, in such a strong seller's market, they take somebody out showing houses and they put in 3 different offers on 3 different houses, all of them with a due diligence period. And whichever one they don't get accepted, that's the one, or whichever ones that, if they get multiple ones accepted, they go through due diligence and then they terminate the other one. Okay. This is a way of telling the seller, this is the only house I'm making an offer on. Does that cost your client anything? Not really. Okay. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through each and every one of these. They are here. All you have to do is access them under the Century 21 Clause library, and you can see all of these and read the language of them and use them at your leisure. Some additional advanced techniques: a personal appeal letter, i.e. a love letter, something along the lines of something like this with a nice little picture of who these people are and why they love the house. And if you can have your buyer make a personal connection to the seller, you can get the strategic advantage. That one, as is, we've kind of already covered that. You can actually say things like no seller repairs will be requested. I'm going to add one other thing, and I thought that was right here, but apparently I'm not remembering my slides very well. In addition to a letter, you can also do a video. I strongly encourage y'all to think about doing a video. I have walked out of a showing that the buyers have fallen in love with, pick up my phone, have them literally standing in front of the front door and say, okay, do a 30-second video, boom, and of them saying, this is why I love this house, and this is who we are. I've got 3 kids. This is the home we see our lives happening in for the next 20 years. Those kind of things can actually really make a huge difference. Okay, y'all, what you got? Any questions?
I'm just asking about the complete package again. I'm sorry. So usually you're going to have the purchase and sale agreement, the financing contingency, the due diligence contingency, and the appraisal contingency, correct? And you might have the escalating clause.
You might have the escalation clause. For example, the seller's property disclosure, the community association disclosure that you got from the listing agent. Have all of those included in your package. Have them signed already. Always send the complete package to your clients. You know what? I've actually got a little spreadsheet of what should be included in each offer package. I'll gin that up and I'll include it when this gets posted on Workplace. Okay.
Thank you.
And worst case scenario, help desk right there. Those people, they can tell you what you need to include, what should be included, what's missing. Lead-based paint disclosure, if it's a house built prior to 1978, those kind of things all should be included in the initial offer package. What other questions you got for me, folks? It's good information, helpful. Any aha moments? Anything that you didn't think about or didn't know from before?
Several. So this is good. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, everybody. All right, y'all have a great day. Apologize for going a little bit over. Let's go out there and kill it, make it happen today.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.